Today's lesson is 7.1. Yes, I'm absolutely positive. First, the question is, what is an absolute value? An absolute value is symbolized by two lines, and there would be a value between them. Every time you see this symbol, it is read as the absolute value of x. Now, those two lines, the absolute values, they make sure that any value that comes out should be a positive value. So no negative value should come out of the absolute value. Let's take an example. If I have to find the value of absolute of 23, as you can see here, 23 is already positive, so I don't have a problem with it. Then it will come out as 23. Let's take another example. Absolute value of negative 4.5. As you can see here, there's a negative sign. So the absolute value has a problem with it. It will not allow any negative sign to come out. For this reason, the value will come out as positive. That means positive 4.5. Keep in mind, when you take a value outside the absolute values, the two lines, they're not written anymore. Let's take an example. Find the value of the following. Absolute value of 35. As you can see here, 35, the value inside the absolute values is already positive. So what will come out is a positive value, which is 35. Another example. Absolute value of negative 5.6 equal. As you can see here, we have a negative sign inside the absolute value signs. So we're not allowed to keep it. What comes out is a positive value. So the negative sign should not come out, and a positive value should come out. That's a 5.6. As you can see here, we no longer write the absolute value signs. They are removed in our final answer. Another example, part C, minus absolute value of 24. As you can see here, the negative sign is not inside the absolute value, it's outside. So the absolute value signs have no power on it. They cannot change it because it's outside. So it stays as is, minus. Then I look inside the absolute value. Inside the absolute value, there's no negative sign. It's a 24. So it comes out as 24. Then minus, multiplied by a positive value, the final answer will be negative 24. Some will come and tell me, but you told us what comes out of the absolute value is positive. That's right. Remember, the negative sign here was outside the absolute value. No power on it, it cannot change it. Part D, minus absolute value of negative 230 equal. Let's start. We have a negative sign outside, not inside the absolute value, so it has no power on it, it cannot change it. It has to stay as negative, so the negative stays as is. Now we look into the absolute value. As you can see, inside the absolute value we have a negative sign. This negative sign should be changed because it's inside the absolute value. So what comes out is 230. Negative multiplied by a positive value, it is negative 230. Again, what's outside the absolute value cannot be changed, stays as is. Another example, find the value of absolute value of negative 4 to the power of 3. When you have an exponent inside the absolute value, first you have to solve the exponent, then take the value outside the absolute value. As you know, negative 4 to the power of 3 is negative 64. So we keep the absolute value for now because we're solving the exponent, negative 64. Now we solve absolute value of negative 64. Again, we have a negative sign inside the absolute value. It's not allowed to stay. The whole value should become a positive value. That's a positive 64. Part F, write down the value of absolute value of negative 3 all to the power of 3. As we agreed, step number 1 is solving the exponent. So we keep the absolute value for now. Negative 3 to the power of 3 is negative 27. Step number 2 is removing the absolute value. First, we make sure that the negative sign should not stay. Then the final answer would be 27. Part G, negative absolute value of negative 2 to the power of 3. As you can see here, we have a negative outside. The absolute value has no power on it. So the negative needs to stay. And as we agreed, before removing the absolute value, we have to solve the exponent because we have an exponent. So we keep the absolute value for now. Negative 2 to the power of 3 is negative 8. Now here we have a negative inside the absolute value. This is the one that we change. So the negative outside stays as is. Removing the absolute value to get a value of 8. Negative multiplied by a positive value, the final answer would be negative 8. H, find the absolute value of 0. It is 0. I, find the absolute value of 2 over 3. It is a positive value, so it comes out as is without the 2 lines. So the final answer would be 2 out of